Hello, Canucks fans. Welcome back to another episode of Canucks Conversation, brought to you by Bet365. We're coming to you from the Pacific Toyota Dealer Studios. Visit shoptoyota.ca or your local Pacific Toyota dealer today. My name is Dave Guidrelli. I am joined by Harman Dial. We've got two Canucks games to talk about. We're going to chat about the Seattle Seahawks as well. I'm sure it's going to be a busy episode. Harm, how was your weekend?
It's great, man. Sun is shining. The tank is rolling on perfectly, which is, I think, going to be a theme, especially that Friday night game against the Devils. I was at that contest, and the vibes are good, right? They're losing, but they're staying competitive. There are still some silver linings to find with this team, and it's just I also just love the weather these days. So I'm in good spirits today.
You must have some colleagues that you've talked to that are in different parts of the continent that are dealing with a little bit different weather than us right now. Yeah, it's hitting like everyone but us, which, hey, if you're out there, stay safe. We hope you still have power, all that sort of stuff. But yeah, I played golf this weekend. Quick transition. I played golf this weekend and the ground was frozen. So I was trying to get my tee into the ground and it was really hard. You needed should have brought like a drill or something with me. That was the hardest thing about my weekend was I had to get the tee into the ground. I played horribly too. I shot like 105. It was my worst round. I didn't shoot a single over 100 last year, but off to a bad start in 2026, but I'll get it on the rails. Just like we'll get this show on the rails. Our chat, some different thoughts going on in the chat. We're going to talk about all of this. People want us to talk about the call-up of Jonathan Lekkerimäki, which we will. People want us to talk about the Seahawks. People want us to talk about everything but the Pittsburgh game, apparently, but we're going to get to it all. If you want to make sure your question or comment gets in the show, hit us with a super chat. Proceeds from our super chat go to the BC Mental Health Foundation, changing the face of mental health addiction by spreading breakthroughs in care, public understanding, research, and knowledge exchange. Okay, Harm, you had some stuff on the Devils game on Friday night that you wanted to talk about, a 5-4 loss for the Vancouver Canucks.
Okay, yeah, and this is where I should clarify. Yesterday's game, because Boeser and Buium got hurt, maybe I was overselling how ideal of a week it was for this team. But that Friday loss against the Devils is really more of what I was referring to when I talked about a perfect weekend for Team Tank, where a game you thought the Canucks were out of early, continued battling back. And then the last 2 minutes were probably the most entertaining hockey we've seen on Rogers Arena ice this season. Just the number of opportunities. It was hilarious how many chances the Devils had to ice the game with the empty net. You had not just the sequence where Pettersson basically was playing goalie out there, put his legs down, full butterfly. What a pad stop. But then there was another 2-on-1 rush sequence, and then there's back pressure, and the Devils can't convert on that. Brock then scored the other way, and the building went nuts when that happened to bring it back to a 1-goal deficit. And then there was another sequence after that where it was Nico Hischier, an opportunity to ice the game again, and this time it was Linus Karlsson, who isn't very fast, finding a way to hustle back, out-muscle Hischier down low, and then deking through the neutral zone. And Canucks continued with their onslaught of pressure. Buium had a terrific goal. There were a lot of, I think, exciting, fun parts about that game. I think when you look at, all right, what went against the Canucks in that one, I think Kevin Lankinen had a pretty tough night. A couple of shots that just went through him, including one that was a floater from the point. But this is part of my broader takeaway, where it wasn't just Lankinen that struggled. I walked away from that game looking at Jacob Markstrom and wondering if he's cooked. And I know it's been a difficult season for him up until this point anyway, but his rebound control is brutal. He just can't catch pucks anymore, and he leaves them straight out in front of the net, which is exactly what happened on the Buium goal. But overall point stands that it was a fun game to be a part of, especially the last 40 minutes.
And that was a similar one with the Pittsburgh game as well. Maybe not 40 minutes, maybe more like 10, 20 if we're being really generous. But the perfect tank game, right? Like, that's what people want, is keep these games close. Rajcraft in the chat said, all I want is entertaining games if I have to see this rebuild. Both games within a goal Like both games within a goal, they were right there, Harm. They were right there in the end. On this Devils game, I want to say this, and you mentioned, I think it was the Linus Karlsson goal is what you meant, but when Karlsson came in and buried the rebound, when Markstrom tries to glove it down, leaves it right out in front. And
well, both. Even the Buium one, I didn't love this. Like, I didn't love the rebound control in that. It was both goals that Markstrom just left rebounds out right in front.
Yeah, and so I had the same takeaway. That was what was funny about it, was Markstrom was the reason that game was close. I wasn't looking at, like, Stuart Skinner, I thought played really well on Sunday. I thought he was going to get a shutout. I'll say it. I thought he was destined for a shutout because the Canucks didn't play particularly poorly through the first 40 minutes. They were down by 3, but they didn't play poorly through the first 40 minutes of that game. Now, obviously, score effects, it's going to happen when you're down. You're going to get more shots. You're going to push the offense while the other team tries to lock it down. That's just what's going to happen. But the Canucks came pretty damn close, man. It was 3-2 right up till the end. They pulled their goalie. Some more good determination to not give up the empty net goal. And they almost got it done. Like, they almost got it done. They almost tied it up. But instead, they lose in regulation, which is good for the tank. But, hey, I was at the game, man. Rogers Arena was bumping. People were singing after the Canucks scored their first goal. It was 3-1, and they started singing in the crowd. And not, like, forced by the Jumbotron said, all right, everybody, sing along. It was just natural. It just naturally happened. The vibes are good, man. The vibes are good. The vibes were good. And I should say were good, because at the end of the game, do you want to get to this now? What happened at the end? Okay. At the end of the game, as the Canucks are looking for the tying goal, Jacob, we have the video here. Brock Boeser is at the net front, looking for a loose puck, looking to bang home the loose change on Stuart Skinner. And in comes Brian Rust with his elbow extended. Blatant headshot, hits Boeser, and not a good hit from Rust. He's going to have a hearing today. We saw that from the Department of Player Safety. And Rick Dollywell reporting today as well that supplemental discipline is expected. Just looking at that hit, I would, if we're going off what happened with Tanner Jeannot, also on Brock Boeser, different plays, but also similar plays, that's got to be at least 3 games, I think, for Brian Rust. This can't be a fine.
Yeah, it'd be outrageous if it was just a fine, especially one angle of the replay showed that it was basically his elbow that caught him. It wasn't even just a blindside situation. It was kind of Rust extending his arm, a little bit of chicken wing situation. And I've heard some Penguins fans sort of saying, oh, mad scramble in and around the net. Sometimes these things happen, and it wasn't that bad of hit. And I just strongly disagree. Boeser, the puck was on was closer to the right side of the left post. Brock Boeser didn't have the puck on his stick.
Yeah.
He was just in the general vicinity of the area. So I don't know what Rust was thinking to just go, I'm going to skate a million miles an hour into this sequence and run Boeser over. But yeah, I think that's got to be a multi-game suspension for sure.
Here's what Adam Foote had to say about post-game. Adam Foote, look, we talk about Adam Foote a lot. Now, he doesn't like to say much during post-game pressers, but he had a lot to say about this one.
On Boeser at the end of the game, and do you have an update on him?
I don't have an update yet, but I just looked at the hit, and it was a pretty. There was a headshot. It was shoulder in his head. I'm sure the league will look at it because it was. Even though he may have been desperate to get Best down because it was a scrum at the net, I still think it was something that you got to be in control of your body. I thought it was a little bit of a vicious hit to the head.
Adam, your team has.
I agree. I agree with him. That is a vicious hit to the head. Boeser obviously suffered what we think is a concussion last year when he got hit by Tanner Jeannot. Boeser's on IR. Buium's on IR. We didn't even talk about Buium in that game, but he takes a puck off the face in the first period. A lot of disallowed goals in this game. But he takes a puck off the face and then goes down to the tunnel, came back out for the second. He had the fishbowl on, but he is also now on IR. Darren Dreger on Securus and Price today saying that he anticipates it's going to be a week to 10 days. So not what you're looking for when it comes to injury luck for the Canucks.
Yeah, and to go back to the Besser one, I understand how in that situation, mad scramble in and around the net, how in real time no Canuck caught that it was a headshot by Rust, right? So I'm not going to criticize them for, oh, why didn't anybody go after Rust? Because I don't think anybody realized in the moment what exactly had happened. And even on the broadcast, you heard John Shorthouse wondering if it was like a high stick that had caught Besser. I certainly didn't realize what exactly happened as the play was unfolding, because of just how desperate everybody was, how many sticks and bodies were sort of around that area. But I will say, and I don't know off the top of my head the next time these teams play, but when it's one of your marquee players that takes a headshot like that, I would want to see, if you're trying to build the right culture for your organization, you want to stick up for your teammates. And to me, there should be a response. And when you look at this Canucks team, and I'm not just talking about the last couple of years, but last 6-7 years, that part of sticking up for teammates has been inconsistent, where we've seen it sometimes in other situations. They've let things slide. And to me, when I look at, like, remember when Matthew Schaefer was getting,
Yes.
and then Barzell just went in, and I'm not saying you got a two-hand whack a guy like that, but there's got to be some response to show that, hey, you can't get away with taking runs at some of our top guys, especially if you're going to be a team that draft in top 3. If you end up with a Gavin McKenna or an Ivar Stenberg, opposing teams got to know that they can't get away with freebies. And I feel like, I even think about, was it last year when the Caps played the Canucks and PL Dubois, this is when he was healthy, was just like taking liberties at different Canucks throughout the game, especially Quinn Hughes. And there was just no one to kind of properly stick up to it and actually give a response back. I think you don't want to develop a reputation as a team that doesn't stand up for their teammates. And so with that in mind, I would like to see the next time these two teams meet, somebody make it tough on Rust. And hey, Rust isn't a fighter, so if he doesn't want to answer the bell, you obviously can't control that part, but you got to at least let him know that, hey, we remember what happened and you're going to eat a couple extra cross checks or whatever it is.
100%. And again, you bring up the response at the end of the game, and Jake DeBrusk said after, like, oh, we didn't see it. And people in the chat are pointing out that it looked like Karlsson was the only one that saw something, but he thought it was Ricard Raquel that hurt Brock Besser. So you'll see on the replay, if you watch it again, Linus Karlsson goes right up to Ricard Raquel, and he tries to have some response, but I'm sure Raquel's saying, like, I didn't do anything, man. So again, you can say, yeah, you want a response, but they didn't see it, so it's okay. I have a bigger issue, Harm, with obviously the fact that this is now years we've been talking about this, but earlier in the game, there was a lot of liberties being taken on Canucks, particularly Parker Wotherspoon, right? Going after Elias Pettersson. Evander Kane's on the ice, and I know he's going up the ice and he's focusing on the play. I understand that, but you have to have some sort of response. And I know Elias Pettersson was throwing his weight around in that game, which is kind of another takeaway from it, is he's apparently sick right now, but he did not show it in his play. The dude was buzzing. He was throwing his weight around all over the game yesterday, but I just thought that there could have been a few spots in that game where the Canucks were getting pushed around a little bit, and it would have been a good time to respond. And not to just repeat what you're saying, but I can't stress enough how much I agree with the notion that this is way more important than it's ever been, at least in the time we've covered this team, with these young guys coming. Because look, Brock Besser's been here for a while, but what if that's Liam Ogren on the ice or Zeev Buium? What do you think those guys are thinking if there's no response when liberties are taken on other players on their team? Not to mention, like you said, a Gavin McKenna or an Ivar Stenberg. What do you think those guys are thinking at that time? It helps you have your, like, how many times did we talk to guys when Zadorov was on this team, right? About how you walk with your chest out a little bit more when you have Nikita Zadorov on your team. Now, I'm not saying go trade for Nikita Zadorov, but I'm also not suggesting you have to go trade for Nikita Zadorov. My point is, when you're talking about, oh, we need vets, go get the vets that are going to provide that for your team.
Yeah, and it doesn't always have to be dropping the gloves and fighting right away, right? If that naturally happens, sure. But when the Caps played the Canucks most recently, and I think it was Ryan Leonard that took a run at Pettersson. And then in that situation, Kane, who hasn't done this consistently enough this season, but credit to him in that moment, gave it back to Ryan Leonard a little bit, right? And that's maybe not, in the grand scheme of things, might not remember it as a major example of sticking up for your teammate, but I like you clock that, and I can guarantee you that Ryan Leonard probably remembers that the next time he's playing the Canucks, where it's not going to prevent him from still throwing that hit or playing on the edge, but you at least subconsciously know that, all right, there's probably going to be some type of response if I take a run at this team's top players.
100%, man. 100%. And just kind of put a bow on this conversation. Do you remember how scared defensemen were or wingers were when Zadorov was on the tracks? Like when they knew they were getting lined up by Zadorov? That's the thing. You're going to get lined up more if your guys are taking liberties on our guys. That's the mentality, right? Like that's the mentality, at least from Nikita Zadorov. So anyways, just put a bow on it. Brian Rust, supposedly facing some supplemental discipline, has a hearing today. We'll see what comes of it. I don't have much else on the Penguins game. Oh yeah, let's just quickly. Canucks placed Boeser and Buium on IR today. Jonathan Lekkerimäki and Victor Mancini getting the call up. Let's break down this aspect of it. This next segment is brought to you by our friends at Pacific Blue Cross. Win the ultimate Canucks road trip. Get Pacific Blue Cross travel insurance for your chance to see the Canucks take on the Kings in Los Angeles, complete with flights, hotel, lower bowl tickets, and more. No purchase necessary. Contest ends February 28th, 2026. Open to residents of BC only. Enter now at pacificbluecross.ca/Canucks. Okay, Jonathan Lekkerimäki, Harm. If you've been following Dave Hall, you've been seeing that Jonathan Lekkerimäki is kind of on one right now down in Abbotsford. He had a couple of just beautiful goals in the past few games that they've played. You've been seeing it on Canucks Army. You'll see it in tomorrow's Blackfish report that Dave puts together. But Lekkerimäki was certainly one of the bigger stories of the Canucks prospect pipeline this past week.
Yeah, and the shot specifically, he is ripping it with a ton of confidence right now, and he gets called up great. Now, what we really want to see is give him meaningful minutes, right? It doesn't have to be, we're not even saying 17, 18 minutes a night, but make sure that he's at least in the mid-teens and has an opportunity to get meaningful power play time, to get top 6 reps. Don't just throw him in the bottom 6 and think that he's going to find a way to build confidence and produce playing 9, 10, 11 minutes a night. I don't see a point in calling him up if you're just going to play him fourth line type of minutes. Agreed. Because I don't think that's going to give him enough of a leash and enough of a leeway to take that next step. And that's where you and I had the debate. What was it, 6-ish weeks ago, maybe even a couple months ago now, where you wanted to see Lekkerimäki get an opportunity right away. And I was making the case that I want to see him down in the American League, just cooking, dominating, building confidence. And then if and when he gets the opportunity to come up, and we were assuming this might happen closer to the trade deadline once they move off of, I guess Sherwood's already gone, but in Evander Kane as well.
Yeah, once there's more room.
And so, all right, now you make the recall. Key part is let him play. Don't have him on a tight leash.
Jonathan Lekkerimäki, man. Since the 20th, of January, all right, his last 4 games, dude's got 3 goals and an assist in that time. Look, I mean, you always feel when calls like this happen, you feel for Manny Malhotra, who's dealing with a pretty crappy situation in Abbotsford this year. But man, like, you wanted to see him cook? I think he's cooking right now, Harm. I think he's cooking, and I wholeheartedly agree with you. You've got to have him in the top 6. You got to have him getting that opportunity. Now, maybe this is again, everybody yelled at me when I was confused by the Linus Karlsson extension, just said it felt kind of thoughtless. Why is Linus Karlsson playing 4th line minutes right now? Can you riddle me that? What's the deal there?
That brings us perfectly to the stat of the day, which is a presentation of Uber Eats. Uber Eats is enabling fans to maximize their fandom all season long with exclusive game day deals on the app. From game day eats, paper plates, and napkins, if you're hosting, to all the ingredients you need to make your favorite game day dip. Before, during, and after the game, Uber Eats is assisting every fan's hockey experience all season long. hashtag crave the stats. What a perfect transition. You didn't even know this was going to be the topic, but worked out perfectly. I actually wanted to talk about Linus Karlsson's lack of ice time. He's averaged 12-15 over his last 5 games. And for the season as a whole, he ranks 14th among Canucks forwards in average 5-on-5 ice time per game. And yet he leads the team with 25-5 points, which is 4 ahead of the next highest Canuck. It just doesn't jive. And to me, one of my biggest takeaways from the Devils game was just how impressive he looked. Outside of even the goal, the details of his game where you appreciate, for example, a breakout for his line where he was in the defensive zone. He was on the half wall. Defenseman makes a sharp pass to him. There's a defenseman pinching on him, and he makes a one-touch, deft little play that results in his line generating an entry with speed. I've also noticed that his hands and stick handling in traffic, his overall passing, is really underrated, and that allows him to make a lot of the plays that they're not necessarily leading directly to goals, but he's able to just connect plays for his line to ensure that they hold on to puck possession, that they spend more time in the offensive zone. And that's part of the reason why his underlying two-way metrics have been so strong this season as well. And also just the smarts and anticipation of what lanes to take off the puck to put himself into position to generate net front high danger chances at a high clip. And even on the power play in that game, Canucks had an opportunity late in the third period. He was stationed below the goal line, made a couple of really neat passes to set up Jake DeBrusk in the bumper for 2 grade A opportunities. I thought it was quietly, like, again, even outside of the goal, I was so impressed with all the other ways that he was quietly impacting the game. And I really believe he should be playing more than 11 to 12 minutes a night.
That's my main question for you, Harm. What's the deal here? Like, why isn't he playing more? And again, everybody yelled at me when I said, if you think this guy has top 6 upside, then you just overpaid, or even top 9. Top 9 was what I said. If you have top 9 upside, then you just overpaid, you haven't overpaid, but you've extended him right to when you're going to need to extend him. And if he accomplishes what you think he's going to accomplish, it's just going to cost you more money. So anyway, whatever. I'm not revisiting the Linus Karlsson thing. I just think it's silly that he's not playing. I mean, he'll get a chance now. Well, maybe not, because here's the thing. We didn't really talk about this when we were talking about Lekkermäki. Like, Boeser on IR means that there's a spot in the top 6 on the right wing that is available. I mean, I want Linus Karlsson to play, but I really want to see Jonathan Lekkermäki get that spot. Like, if you're deciding that John Lekkermäki is the guy to come up, then you put him in that spot. Now, if they had called up Archdeep Baines instead, then Linus Karlsson deserves that shot. But if you're calling up Jonathan Lekkermäki, you gotta have him. You gotta have him in the top 6. My view.
I fully agree. I think Karlsson has proven, as unfortunate as it kind of is, that he can still produce in limited ice time, and he has the kind of game because of how heavy he is, how many just 50-50 stick battles, board battles that he's able to win, and just how reliable he is defensively, that his game can translate perfectly fine to a fourth line role if that's the spot that he needs to be deployed in. Whereas I think for Lekkermäki, we know that he's going to need to produce offense at the NHL level and do it at a legit middle 6 pace in order to stick as an NHL player. And if you're trying to unlock that offensive version of him, I think you've got to give him talented line mates to play with. I think you've got to give him meaningful minutes. And I think you've got to put him in a role where, all right, you're in the top 6. Your job is to create some offense. And so, yeah, you have a little bit more leeway to hold on to the puck, to try and make plays, and to not be worried that, hey, if I turn the puck over, am I going to see my minutes cut? Whereas when you're on the 4th line, the task of that 4th line is just different, right? It's a different job description, whereas the 4th line, you're thinking, all right, let's go out there and let's create some energy. Yeah, sure, we want to spend time in the offensive zone, but that's more through our forechecking and more because we're trying to build momentum for our team, not because our job necessarily is to score goals and tilt the ice that way. So with that in mind, as much as I want to see Karlsson play more, I think you got to give the top 6 look to Lekkerimäki.
This is a great comment. I'll say this. Ollie Stevenson, or Sventon, excuse me, in the chat said, if teams continue to hurt Canucks players, we should get someone like Gadjevich back to take some fights. Oh, Jonah Gadjevich in the bottom 6. I love it. This is like 2015, 2016, all over again when everybody was like throwing out the line combos. It's like, you guys are all freaked out for nothing. You're going to have Adam Gaudette 2C, Tyler Madden 3C. It's simple. Buy into the future. Anyways.
Poland's future second line winger.
Yes. Yeah. Jack Rathbone, first pair. Although that was me. Friend of the show, Jack Rathbone. So he didn't have the right opportunity here. Anyways. Anything else on the lines that you wanted to talk about? I think we agree on Lekkerimäki. You hope Boeser's not out too long. You hope it's not anything serious for him, and we wait to see what comes down for Brian Rust after that hit. On defense, Victor Mancini gets the shot. This is going to be an interesting one because it's been the same story for him all season long. I don't think we need to say anything new other than you want to see him start to play a game of a third pairing defenseman.
Yeah, he's got to make meaningful progress in his game. And again, I think the biggest thing for me is establish some kind of identity for what you are as an NHL defenseman, right? Are you going to make an impact as hard to play against, more rugged, physical type of guy? All right, then add that consistently to your game. Are you going to become a penalty killer? And that's really a trait that NHL coaches love in third pair defensemen. Okay, great. Before you get that PK opportunity, you're going to need to prove at 5-on-5 that you can defend well enough, that your in-zone defensive reads are sharp, that you're anticipating plays well, that you're clogging up the right passing lanes, that you're blocking some shots. Do you want to be more of, all right, I'm a third pair defenseman, maybe the defensive side of my game isn't the strongest, I'm going to make my impact by breaking pucks out and making a little bit of a secondary offensive impact in my sheltered minutes against softer competition? Okay, great. Well, then you've got to figure out on your defensive zone retrievals how to make better outlet passes, right? At the NHL level, unless you're Quinn Hughes, you're not going to be able to just wheel every puck out and beat the forecheck that way. You have to be able to problem solve under pressure. You got to show some calmness, some poise, and just make sharper outlet passes. I think that's an area where Mancini needs to improve. So for me, like, ideally he'd improve in all of those areas, but at least to me, he's got to almost pick a lane and figure out what's my role, what's my job description to be an effective third pair NHL defenseman.
Couldn't agree more, man. Couldn't agree more. All right, let's get to anyone else. Before anyone else, though, I want to tell everybody about our friends over at Greta, a great spot for the Super Bowl. Still taking reservations. Book your spot at Greta, gretabar.com. Go check it out. They're gonna have a great Super Bowl party. They've got giveaways, prizes, and more for the big game. And I think a lot of people are going to be tuning into that game and wanting to get together for that game because the Seattle Seahawks are in the Super Bowl. Jacob's going to bring himself in a second to talk about a shout out to Greta. Now let's get to anyone else, which is brought to you by our friends at Pacific Toyota Dealers and the Toyota Prius plug-in hybrid, a no-compromise approach to electric vehicles that offers the best of both worlds. You can drive 72 kilometers on battery alone, enough to get you from downtown to the rink, the grocery store, and home to recharge. Seamlessly transition from electric mode to the gas engine for a combined range of 962 kilometers. There's no sacrifices when it comes to horsepower or style with its sleek, low, and wide exterior and sophisticated interior. It's loaded with tech that's actually easy to use. Plug in to recharge at home or at one of the over 2,000 public charge stations in BC alone. And now you can lease a 2026 Prius plug-in hybrid SE from $109 weekly at 3.99% APR for 64 months with $3,300 down. Visit shoptoyota.ca or your local Pacific Toyota dealer today. All right, Jacob, bring it on. Your Seattle Seahawks, look at him with his jersey and his hat. Your Seattle Seahawks got the job done. And just give us your thoughts, man. At the start of the season, we were talking about this team being, a lottery team. You don't trust Sam Darnold. You said you didn't believe in this team at all.
That's not at all what I said. I remember I think the line on Bet365, because I made this bet, was over under 8.5 wins. I'm like, this is the easiest over bet of my life. I thought they'd win 10, and they went out and won. What was it? 14, won the division, 1 seed, absolutely demolished San Francisco in the divisional. And then like that NFC championship game was the 2 best teams in the league going and playing a shootout. The Rams, all 3 times they played the Seahawks, they're the only team that really made the Seahawks defense look not elite. Now they buckled down in the fourth quarter and kept them out of the end zone, did what they had to do. But yeah, I mean, Matt Stafford's going to be the MVP for a reason, and he showed it. But yeah, honestly, like I was worried about Darnold at times earlier in the season. After what he did in the divisional, I'm like, okay, if he plays like that, they should be fine. But if he has to get into a shootout with Stafford, is he going to – I was a little worried. Like, is he going to do it? And then he did it. That was the best game of his career. And now he's going to the Super Bowl. So,
dude, I'm so happy for you, and I'm happy for all the Seahawks fans too, man. Like it's a different vibe. It's a different vibe up here because a lot of people up here are Seahawks fans. It's a different vibe when they're in the Super Bowl. Super Bowl is always a ton of fun. But honestly, what year was the Seahawks last Super Bowl up here? It was 2014, 15. I know I was
no, so it was 20. It's tough in the NFL because the season and the Super Bowl don't line up, right? Like the 2014 season, the Super Bowl was in 2015 because it's in February. So it was the 2014 season. That was when they lost to New England. 2013 season was when they beat Denver to win the Super Bowl. Okay, so it's been 11 years.
This is my point. I was a youngin'. Like, me and my friends would get together every year to watch the Super Bowl. And whenever the Seahawks were in the Super Bowl, it was just a different vibe. Everybody's wearing their jerseys. Everybody's so excited. Oh, I'm happy. I'm excited for them.
So I don't follow football very closely or know much about the NFL, but one question I have is how the hell did both the Seahawks and Patriots become so good against, I don't want to say so quickly because it's not like it happened overnight, but I mean,
it did for New England.
New England, they obviously lost Brady, Gronk, all the core guys from that era, and then were horrible towards the end of the Belichick era. He obviously leaves. And I thought at that time, okay, they're probably going to be bad for a long time because you lost your best pieces and probably takes time to rebuild. And then now I looked at their record and how good they are again. And then even for the Seahawks, right? That core was sort of around Wilson and Lynch and those guys. And to now see them so good pretty quickly again, like what happened?
So the easy answer is head coach and defense. Mike McDonald comes over. He's a great defensive head coach. He takes the Seahawks defense, which in the last year of Pete Carroll was the worst run defense in the league and like the 24th overall defense. And now the Seahawks are the best run defense in the league and the number 1 scoring defense in the league. Same with Vrabel when he went to New England. Like people forget because it's easy to look at all the rings that Tom Brady won, but the Patriots, when they were winning Super Bowls, had a dominant defense under Bill Belichick. Vrabel brought that back. They have a great defense now. But also, like, for those who are hockey fans that don't really follow football, you can rebuild an NFL team in 2 years. And that's essentially what the Seahawks did. And, like, last year they won 10 games, missed the playoffs, but, like, that was their rebuilding year. And then they brought in a bunch of new guys this offseason. They drafted really well for the last about 4 or 5 years. And like you can take an NFL team from the basement to the Super Bowl if you have a good coach, a good general manager, and a quarterback. Like you don't need the most elite quarterback. It helps, but just a quarterback that fits your system. So the Seahawks run the ball a lot. They needed a quarterback who wasn't going to turn the ball over a ton, who was going to be a bit of a game manager, basically the opposite of what Russell Wilson was like at the end of his time in Seattle, where he was trying to do everything himself. Darnold comes in, fits the system perfectly. They fix the offensive line, and all of a sudden they're a powerhouse.
Are you rooting for the Seahawks?
Of course. Yeah.
I'm
a bandwagoner. I'm not gonna. Yeah. I didn't even. I was watching the Canucks game, and it was on at the same time as the Seahawks game, so I didn't even get a chance to catch it. But I tune into Super Bowl every year, so of course I'm gonna root for the Seahawks.
I want the Seahawks to win. I want my friends to be happy, and also Mariners fans. Mariners fans get to be happy too because there's a lot of overlap there. And I'm a Mariners fan, not necessarily a Seahawks fan. It was funny because I was having this conversation with my wife. She's very anti-Seahawks. and I never actually asked her why. I was like, "Oh, Seahawks are in the Super Bowl," and she was just kind of like, "F the Seahawks," and I was like, "Oh," and then I changed the subject because I was a little scared of her. But anyway, I'll have to get to the bottom of that, Jacob. Maybe you could talk to her about
A
it.
lot of people, like the Seahawks Legion of Boom era, like rubbed a lot of people the wrong way. And then especially afterwards, because Russell Wilson was kind of really easy, like really annoying in the years following. But when the Seahawks were really good back then, like they were like, I'm wearing my Richard Sherman jersey. Richard Sherman, you loved him or you hated him, and the vast majority of the league hated him. Cam Chancellor, same way. He'd knock receivers almost out cold on a weekly basis. So teams really didn't like the Seahawks, and I think a lot of people still don't like the Seahawks. But overall, I would imagine, and I know we've got a regular S Little Boston in the chat who's a Patriots fan. I would say in general, most football fans are probably going to be cheering for Seattle. I don't think anyone wants to see the Patriots win yet another Super Bowl.
All right. Oh, sorry. I thought that was S Little Boston who said he has a Sherman jersey ready. That was T. Rogers who said he has this Sherman jersey.
And
yeah,
a few people pointing out to my point about how drafting and turning around quickly. Yeah. Like in the NFL, you're drafting 20 to 23-year-olds who have played college football, which like top level college football is now professional football. Let's be honest. They're getting paid millions. They're playing in front of 100,000 people. Like you're drafting guys who are coming in to start on your team and be impact players immediately. Whereas in the NHL, you're drafting 17-year-old kids who are 3 years away from being contributors, right? Like that's the difference.
I might buy a Fernando Mendoza. That's his name, right? I might buy a Raiders jersey of him. Like I love that dude. I only heard about him and only knew about him like in the week leading up to the national championship. Then I watched the national championship, and I fell in love with the dude. His speech about his mom and stuff. I'm rooting for that guy so hard. I love that guy. I'm gonna buy his jersey, I think. Anyway, Spatzley said, "I'm cheering for football to be a banned sport." We'll talk more football, I'm sure, but not today. I had a good one here from Rajcraft that I wanted to get to. He said, "How would you use a retention slot to maximize the most return in a deal?" This is an interesting one, and I want to get to that specific part of it, but not to pivot too far away from the question, but it kind of transitions into one thing I really wanted to talk about, and that was when I was at the Pittsburgh game yesterday. I talked to Ben Kindle, of course, born and raised in the greatest city on earth, Coquitlam, British Columbia. Learned to skate on the pond at Poirier, probably. I don't know if that's true.
I'm pretty sure. I'm going to jump in. I'm pretty sure he actually grew up in Port Coquitlam.
Port Coquitlam's nice.
He's from my neck of the woods.
That's a good second.
Yeah, but
that's a close second.
Yeah, I don't actually know. I know he went to school in Poco because one of my old coworkers, his daughter went to school with him. They were
Poco. Poco would make sense because I was in the media scrum with him. I was in the media scrum with him last night. I went to the Penguins room instead of the Canucks room, and he was asked by a couple Penguins reporters like, "Oh, did you go home?" And he was like, "No, it's actually like not that close." And they were like, "Oh," and like you understand, like Poco's like 55 minutes. If the dude's with his team, he's probably just gonna stay in a hotel like 5 minutes from Rogers Arena. And then, my goodness, the traffic yesterday, I'll tell you, as someone who had to come from that neck of the woods, took me an hour and 10 minutes. Ben Kindle ain't dealing with that, I'll tell you that. But anyways, apparently his grandma or his great grandma was inviting all the reporters over for food at her house. And that's how I found out. That's how I found out he's half Italian. I'm not joking.
That makes so much sense.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I was like thinking about it, and then I found out he's half Italian, and it made a lot more sense. But
and also, aren't both of his parents were former pro soccer players, right?
Yes. Yeah, his dad played for the Whitecaps. I didn't know that.
His mom also played for the Whitecaps for the old women's team back in the day.
Okay, I didn't know that.
What's and I think his mom's side is the Italian side.
Yes, it is. I read it today because his great grandma was quoted for the story. Did you see this, Harms? She was quoted. Yeah, it was really good. Let me pull it up. I want to do it properly. Okay, it was Kindle's homecoming fueled by family and friends. It was by here's a name, Michelle Crecchiolo, Penguins team reporter. That's a name you can trust. Interviewed Ben's family, and one of the people, Sarah Maglio is his mom, and it was, where'd it go? I saw a great grandmother in the story, but now I can't find it. Oh, there it is. Yeah, "This is wonderful," said Ben's great grandmother, Italia Manchin, who is wearing a black and yellow scarf. I love it. And then Dominic Maglio is interviewed for this story. Just a bunch of Italian names, and I was like, oh yeah, okay, now I understand why people were invited over to his house for dinner. Just awesome. And in all seriousness, like transitioning away from the Coquitlam's the greatest city on earth, Italians rule part of everything. Just the hockey part of it is what I kind of wanted to focus on, because obviously Ben Kindle acquired because the Penguins managed to get that first round pick from the Canucks, the one that the Canucks got from the Rangers. Hang on. The one that the Canucks got from the trade with the Rangers for JT Miller, they immediately flipped it to offload Denton Heinen, offload Vincent Desharnais, and also get back Marcus Pettersson and Drew O'Connor. The Penguins take that pick, give up another first round pick in a trade to move up one spot with the Philadelphia Flyers, and they snipe Ben Kindle. So I don't know the story there, but when you read that, it would seem like the Flyers probably liked Ben Kindle and said, hey, we're going to take Kindle. And then the Penguins said, well, we have this extra first round pick. Could we change your mind? They give up 2 first round picks to move up one spot, and they get Ben Kindle out of it.
Yeah, I'm trying to double check how exactly the sequencing happened.
I triple checked that yesterday.
All right,
I wrote about it. What I'm saying is I don't know what the Flyers thought process was, but my broader point being, Harm, is why were the Penguins able to do that? Why were the Penguins able to have some conviction about a guy that was out of their reach that they would have loved to have taken, but say, you know what? We really want this guy. We're going to get him. Obviously, they were right about that bet. But why were they able to do that, Harm? It's because they made moves like getting rid of Marcus Pettersson and Drew O'Connor and capitalizing and selling high on guys. Like, who's the Marcus Pettersson and Drew O'Connor of this current team? Right? Like, and when I say that, I mean, I'm not asking who's Marcus, you know what I mean? Who is the guy or guys that the Canucks can flip, maybe take on some bad money in return, which the Penguins did? You think the Penguins were like, oh my gosh, we love Denton Heinen and Vincent Desharnais. They said, no, to juice this return and get a first round pick, a valuable first round pick, we're going to take your bad money for you. We're going to do you a favor. So this is a roundabout way of me talking about maximizing returns, maximizing and using retention slots, all that sort of stuff. This is my roundabout way of just saying, like, that's why the Penguins got Ben Kindle, was because they were willing to get a little bit creative. They were willing to take on some bad money in return. They were willing to retain on contracts, and that's how they were able to get Ben Kindle. That's a lesson for the Canucks. That's a lesson for the Canucks to maximize the number of assets you have. Because guess what, Harm? If the Penguins, instead of having an extra first-round pick, traded for a 20-year-old prospect, a 19-year-old prospect, maybe that doesn't do it. Maybe that doesn't do it in the trade with the Flyers. You don't know if the Flyers rank that player the same way you do, but draft picks are currency. So having more of those, you're able to pull off different moves, and that's how they got Ben Kindle. There's a lesson in there for the Canucks, for sure.
Yeah, not just taking on bad money, but also bundling 2 of your most valuable trade assets together, where it wasn't just Marcus Pettersson, it was also Drew O'Connor, which made the trade, which after factoring in for the bad money component of it as well, it made it a lot more palatable for the Canucks to give up that Rangers first in that situation.
Yeah, for sure.
And that's something the Canucks should, like, if you can include, I don't know, you're making a trade for a larger vet that has term left. Can you juice the return by also throwing in like a Teddy Bluger if that team needs extra help down the middle, and maybe taking on some bad money? I think the complication in terms of the bad money part is when you look around the league, there isn't as much of it, right? There aren't as many of the Heinen, Desharnais type contracts. Sure, there are some still out there, right? On Andrew Mangiapane. I'm sure the Leafs have some contracts that they'd like to move, whether it's a Cal Yarncroke or somebody else. But the point being, there aren't a ton of those opportunities maybe left. And that's where, if it isn't bad money, then maybe you're combining multiple pieces on your roster together to send to one team, or you're throwing in maybe like a mid-round pick of your own to ensure that you get the draft pick that is in as high of a round as possible.
Yeah, and it's just currency, right? I think that's the other aspect of it, is just having the currency to make a move like moving up in the draft. Because here's the thing, like the Penguins' plan A, you would assume is plan A is Ben Kindle falls to us at 13th or 12th. Where did they actually select him? Was it 12th or 11th?
I can't remember off the top of my head.
I'll look it up right now. I got to make sure I get it right. Okay. Yes. Okay. Plan A was we're going to draft him at 12th overall with our pick, right? And then they realize, okay, we might have to pivot to plan B, which is giving up a first round pick to move up one spot. You're giving up an additional first round pick to move up one spot, albeit a late one, but you're still moving up and paying another first round pick to move up just one spot because you have some conviction about a guy. And again, like we said, they were right about that. They were right about that move. And that you just want to see the Canucks kind of operate like that, where they're taking on bad money, they're loading up, they're juicing every return that they get, they're making it as worthwhile as possible for themselves. That's just what you hope to see as we kind of get closer and closer to the trade deadline. Thought it was fitting. Shout out Ben Kindle, shout out the Kindle family. 197 people. It was funny. I asked Ben last night, I said, do you know how many people you had? Because I was at the game and every time he scored, twice by the way, it was so loud in there. I was like, what the hell is going on here? And he kind of laughed. He said, like, my mom kind of took pivot on that. And I don't know. I think it was over 150. And I think I read 197 people there for Ben Kindle. Shout out Ben Kindle, making his hometown debut. Macklin Celebrini in town tomorrow with San Jose Sharks. So we'll talk about that tomorrow. But I wanted to at least kind of put a bow on the conversation about Kindle.
Yeah, I'm looking at it again, and maybe I'm missing something here, but I thought the Penguins took Kindle with their own selection at 11 and then traded down the 12th pick, which was the Rangers one that they got from the Canucks, down to the Flyers for 22nd and 24th. And then at 22nd, they took Bill Zonin, and then at 24, they took Will Horkoff, who's been dominating in the NCAA.
Walk me through this again. Did I mess it up?
Yeah, I've got it open. Pittsburgh.
Damn it, I wrote this. I triple checked it. What did I do wrong?
Pittsburgh owned the 11th pick. That was their pick. The 12th pick was the one that the Canucks sent to them. And because they were getting Kindle, and their plan all along clearly was to get Kindle, they got him at 11, and then they traded down to get the 2 picks in the 20s. So,
well, that's just embarrassing. I tell this whole story about how excited. Okay,
I even piped up originally to be like, hey, I don't think that's right. And then you were so confident that I was like, okay, maybe I'm wrong.
Broadcasting 101, folks. Well, look, if you weren't here, that would become truth, right? Like, come on.
Yeah, that's exactly how it works.
Every AI bot, they'd say, according to a reputable source.
That trade was still very sharp because...
Thank you. I'm glad you're saving this.
So Horkov at 24, they took. He's a 6'5" forward. He's got 19 goals in 24 games playing at the University of Michigan. And he was considered a quote unquote reach at the time. And that's another lesson from the Penguins draft class from this past summer is Kindle was considered a quote unquote reach. And then Horkov was considered a reach. And yet those guys are massively outperforming their draft stock. Kindle would easily be a top 10 pick in a redraft, and Horkov would probably be top 15 as well, as a 6'5" winger who is almost a goal a game in the NCAA.
It's funny. Jacob, even in our private chat, was like, I think Harm is right. You guys really did try to stop me from driving the train off the rails, but I appreciate it. I appreciate the save there at the end. Ben Kindle, ladies and gentlemen. I'm a big fan of Ben Kindle's game. And that's the other thing. We talked to Dan Muse after the game as well. And Kindle hadn't scored since December 14th. I know I'm a big fan of this kid, not only because he's from Coquitlam, but the defensive game is there. Like, he had a few plays in that game where he was backtracking, stripping guys of the puck. That is a really talented player and also really solid baseline game, and that's what's allowed him to play at the NHL level. And that's the thing, having that baseline game at 18 years old is pretty crazy.
Well, that's the part that's more rare and more impressive.
Yeah,
is watching Kindle this whole season. Not only are his 2A metrics at 5-on-5 like nasty, like so good for an 18-year-old, but also just by the eye test, he's never cheating for offense. He is so smart defensively. He's so advanced as a two-way player, and that is more impressive than the offensive production, and especially as a player that he's a little bit undersized at 5'11". He's doing it predominantly playing center ice this season. And he's not exactly a burner in a straight line as well. He's a decent skater, but he is more of an elite hockey IQ type of player. And I mean, what a find for the Penguins there.
All right. Anything else from either of you?
Yeah, one more thing, Quads. Kindle did like a Q&A thing with the Penguins at the start of the season on their website. So he's got Italians on both sides of his family. And he mentioned his great grandma. We always ate dinner at their house. She makes the best food. And he mentioned specifically the homemade gnocchi. So there you go. And as someone who grew up with an Italian grandmother making homemade gnocchi, yeah, there's few things better.
That's awesome. I love that. That's great. Yeah. Might be my new favorite player. Tough to say. All right. Let's get to our Bet365 bet of the day. Taking a look at the NHL slate tonight. Do we see any home underdogs? Ooh, the Rangers are home dogs to the Boston Bruins. But I don't really believe in the Rangers. I don't. I just don't. So let's go to the NBA. Jacob, did your parlay hit from the championship?
Yeah. Didn't I say
it was like something about Puka and
Puka
JSN.
and JSN anytime touchdown? It hit. They both scored touchdowns. I made the bet. And I made a little bit of money. So
nice.
Humble brag.
Nicely done. All right. Tonight, the Chicago Bulls are taking on the Los Angeles Lakers. They are home underdogs, protecting the United Center. That's where they play. Plus 100. You can get Bulls money line over at Bet365. Whatever your bet is, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Download the app and get on the game. Use the code NATION at Bet365. Must be 19 plus to play. If you choose to play, please play responsibly. T. Rogers said, you guys should probably double check Quad's numbers on the bet here. I rarely make those mistakes. It was just embarrassing to do it with so much conviction. Because usually when I'm making a mistake, harm saves me. But I was like, nope, I'm right about this one. How did I? Anyways, we'll be back tomorrow. It'll be a better show tomorrow. We'll wrap it up there. For my co-host Harmon Dial and our technical producer Jacob Bazaar, my name is Dave Quadrelli. Thanks so much for the episode of Canucks Conversation.
Canucks Conversation is live Monday through Friday, every weekday at 2 p.m. over on the Canucks Army YouTube channel. Make sure you like, subscribe, and interact in the YouTube live chat every day with us, folks.